Well, welcome, listeners and viewers, to the Big H podcast. I will be your host, Mike Hayes, and today I have along a good old time friend, Coach and teacher Troy Prince. We've known each other for a very, very long time, and we'll title this episode "Touching Base with Troy." Troy, good to have you along for the broadcast.
Thanks, Mike, for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Usually I start off with our guests and we research and listen to a little bit of your biographical information. So if you wouldn't mind, bring a little bit about where you were born, mom and dad, even grandparents, siblings, and whatnot.
No, that's quite the bit of information here. So,
Yeah.
born actually at St. Mary's Hospital in the city. Um, but actually, I'm sorry. I think I was born at Genesee Hospital. Holy cow. Uh, that might be one I want to fact check with my mom, but I think it's Genesee.
I'm sure
Um,
she remembers. So,
yeah. And then we lived out in the Brockport and Hamlin area until I want to say I was pre-K, and I know I did kindergarten at Hazel Jenkins in Hilton, um, and did my entire schooling through the Hilton Central School District. Have an older brother, Todd, who is, gosh, what is he, 56?
yep.
And younger brother, Corey, who is going to be 51. Mom and dad are still alive, living in the village on Smith Street, and had some cousins that went through the district and grandparents. I only knew my mom's parents, as my dad lost his mother when he was in high school, and I don't believe I was alive when my grandfather passed either on his side. He's one of 11, so a very large family out
Mhm.
towards the Hamlin, Kendall, Rockport area. And then mom has two siblings. They were grease people, and that's kind of where I came from. And then grew up in the apartments up at Cedar Terrace, and then my parents bought a house my senior year, or going into my senior year, so was able to transition over that way, and was only there a year before I was out again heading to college.
Yeah, you mentioned that your two siblings, Todd and Corey, who I know pretty well. Explain what their occupations. What are they up to these days?
So Todd just retired after working 30 plus years for the Greece Central School District. Um, and he was, and he still is kind of contracting through them, but he's like a health and safety inspector, variety of roles in that title where he does fire inspections with the fire departments, he playground inspects and makes sure that each building is up to code. And my younger brother Corey works for SUNY Brockport, and he was on the grounds crew there, and I think he's moved into gotten out of the elements and kind of their mail and delivery person there. And so all three of us are going to take advantage of the New York State pension.
Very funny. Now, you also mentioned that throughout the school district, you also have some cousins and whatnot. One of them I know was a very strong athlete, Tony Strep. Speak on his accomplishments and what you remember about him or any of your cousins.
Yeah, so Tony is, my brothers and I look at him like he is the fourth Prince boy.
Hmm.
He's more like a younger brother, and we used to I babysat him, and then he transitioned into being this good athlete, which we kind of found remarkable because he was soft and would cry, and I'm like, there's no way this kid's playing football. Um, and when we finally went and watched, it was almost like he was good because he ran scared and fast. And So we enjoyed kind of trying to give him some big brother advice, of which he almost never listened to anyhow. He did what he wanted to do, but he's a very close relative. Todd and I are pretty close to him. We had a cousin, Jenna Harrington, who was a very good basketball and softball player. Um, it's kind of been neat because we're old now, Mike, so we've had
Hmm.
nephews and children go through. So we've got this, small family thing that has enjoyed our school district for sure.
Yeah, I will thank you for bringing out those cousins and everything. And something I want to touch on a little bit about these podcasts. I like to talk about the community and what it's meant to you and how it's you've developed through it. You kind of touched on your early education. Try to just give us a little more of a glimpse on K-6. Which schools, maybe a teacher or two that
Sure.
you remember that had made a difference on your upbringing.
Yeah. So kindergarten and first grade, I was at Hazel Jenkins. And then we had a daycare situation with my mom with her job. So I ended up going to Northwood for second grade, getting dropped off at that church on the corner of Latta and Manitou.
Hmm.
And that was kind of our pick up and drop off point. So because of that, we went to Northwood for second grade. I think Corey was in kindergarten, maybe. Um, and then third and fourth grade back at Hazel Jenkins. Um, and then fifth and sixth, I think that's where I met you over at West Avenue.
Hmm.
And I would say I had zero complaints about my teachers. And I'm trying to say, can I? Let me see if I can pull this out, Mike, because my memory's shot.
Hmm.
But I think I had Mrs. Cobb, which is Tara Strauss's mom for kindergarten. Mrs. Quinn for first. Mrs. Harder over at Northwood. And Dierico for third grade. Fourth grade, Mrs. Markham. And then fifth and sixth were Mr. Gay and Mr. Satuki. Um, and I would say all of them were super solid. Um, Maybe the most influential. I liked how Mr. Gay kind of let you go at your own pace, and if you were wanted to push yourself, I remember in math, um, you could, and you could go as fast and as far as you wanted to, and he would give you feedback and grade things, and he was disciplined and kind of scary,
Hmm.
uh, but I enjoyed him. I really Mrs. Harder was really good. I remember at Northwood. Um, and that's where a lot of my friendships developed that are lifelong.
Hmm.
Jeff Sorensen, who is one of my best buddies, if not my best buddy, um, he and I were classmates going back to first grade, I want to say, maybe even kindergarten. Um, and Mike Gibbs, I met at Northwood. Our older brothers were tight. Uh, and met you guys, the Heist crew, and the Groutmans, and Tim Ash and Corey Me, all around that West Avenue period. Um, so what a building block of lifetime friendships with our smaller. It's a big now enrollment wise, in size wise community, but it felt small.
Hmm. Well, it's interesting. A couple things that I got from that is I had Mrs. Markham. I also had Gay and Statuki, so I kind of know a little bit about those teachers. Um, it's interesting that you also attended Northwood for a year and then you came back to the village, so you were able to, foster friendships and kind of widen out that friendship base.
Sure. Yeah, it was
Um,
it was interesting meeting a whole new uh, set of kids over there, and that young being apprehensive, uh, and the open classroom setting, and it
mhm.
was great. I enjoyed it.
When you were growing up, and I think this It's going to require a little bit of for reflection upon you. Growing up in that K2 area, were you a shy student? Were you quiet, or were you? You're fairly people that know you now are, you know, you're very funny and you're outgoing and you reach a lot of community. But how would you have assessed your early years?
You know, very shy. Um, very, very shy. I remember my mom, when I was in pre-K, I actually got dropped off early because of, mom or dad had to get to work. And it was just go tell them you're there and then you could go play in a corner. And I didn't want to go do that. I was shy. So when my dad left, I walked home.
Hmm.
At 4 years old in the winter, a good mile or two. Um, and I am still shy. Like, I don't like to walk into a room and be the loud one. When I get comfortable and I know my friends, and I don't even want to say I want to be the loud one. I'm certainly loud when I coach because I want to get my point across, but I'm not doing it for attention. I'm doing it to make sure my players know what we're doing. But I am, you know, more of a quiet person for sure.
Hey, that's something new to me. I mean, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot about reflection, but moving forward a little bit now, there's those seventh through 12th grade years. Talk about any experiences, remembrances, and we'll keep the sports aspect out of it. But what do you
Sure.
remember about your teachers and influencers during that time?
We had some terrific, terrific teachers. Ironically, Mike, I connected with a kid whose dad taught me English my junior year, Ed LaPresto,
Hmm.
and his son um, is the father of a teammate of one of my son Peyton's baseball kids on his travel team. And just by chance, he said, "Oh, yeah, my dad taught in Hilton." And I said, "What's your last name?" Boom, we made the connection, and he was one of my favorite teachers. Middle school, again, a little bit of a shy period to get going. And and I was, as you know, I acquired a nickname. I don't even know if it was you or Mike Scott Gibbs gave it to me with pencils because I was so skinny, and that I lacked any kind of confidence, and just but navigated your way through it. I had terrific teachers. Mr. Kimball, I remember, was outstanding in math. Um, and I think you could turn anywhere and feel like you got productive leaders that were that you felt comfortable talking to. Maybe even started to get that interest in me going into education. Um, and Mr. Lent, I think, was an English guy that I enjoyed. Um, Mr. Aldridge, a very good science guy.
Hmm.
I just really, uh, I think Mr. Corlett, another
Hmm.
history guy, I enjoyed. Just really good people there. Um, then you go into the big bad high school, and our older brothers were. Um, when I was a freshman, I would go down the senior hall and just get tattooed everywhere by our brothers, and but there were a few great guys that like Tommy Chinappy always looked out for me.
Hmm.
Just the nicest guy in the world.
Hmm.
But I had some great teachers there too that I really enjoyed. Mr. Dowd, Kent Smith was a greater science person. Um, Mrs. Tyler, I really enjoyed in keyboarding because learning how to type for the first time, which is so late in the game of what
Hmm.
kids have to do now. But probably my all-time favorite was Mr. David's, and just how funny, quirky he was, and how hardworking. And I remember him letting Jeff Sorensen basically we stopped. Here's a great one, Mike. We stopped we saw a lot of guys taking AP Calc as seniors and having to work really hard, and a bunch of us were like, "No, we're good. Like, we're not going to go get crushed." He developed a course for us, non
Hmm.
AP Calc. So you just went at a much slower pace.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up, you know, kind of figuring some things out, and he would let Jeff Sorensen teach it a lot. And it was great. We really prepared us for our freshman year of math in college.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but he was fantastic. I loved, even though Carl Demo, we had our differences as a basketball coach. Loved him as a guy and really enjoyed him as a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Excellent.
I had a great relationship with him, and we just maybe didn't see eye to eye on what we needed to do as a basketball coach, but loved him. Really learned a lot from him. So yeah, I had a very good high school and middle school experience.
Excellent. And now I want to move into a little bit more of um, sports in high school. And I don't know. I think you're a lot like me. You got through the week so you could compete on the weekends in your athletic events. And you have been part of probably the most successful season ever at Hilton. And that was, I believe, in 1987 on your soccer team. So I'm just going to give it over to you. You can mention teammates, you can mention divisional records, you can the floor is yours.
Oh, it was probably my third favorite sport in soccer. Um,
Hey, Troy, I'm sorry. First, I want you to explain the sports you did play and then slide it into soccer.
sure, sure. So my favorite sport was basketball. Um, and as a freshman, I decided to start playing tennis and grew to really like that a lot. And I played JV soccer as a freshman, and I decided as a sophomore, I don't know, my close circle knows this, but as a sophomore, I said, I'm going to be a basketball player. Just like my older brother, I'm going to dedicate time to that. So I quit soccer. And after a game, Coach Rose came up to me, and a very exciting game. And five of my classmates had played varsity as sophomores, and I was on par with them when we were younger. And then they played more in the off season. They liked it. I didn't, and they started to pass me for sure. At that point, I was probably still close. Um, and like I started as a freshman along with them all. And then I said, you know what, I'm not going to play. So Coach Rose says to me, walking off the field, do you miss it? And I was like, that right there, it was a highly competitive rival, either Gates or Arcadia. Like, yeah, that's awesome. And he said, you realize you'd be up here if you were playing with us. I'm like, well, is it too late? And he's like, well, you got to get in shape, and you'd have to play JV and get in shape, and when you're ready, we'll pull you up. So I got registered, and um, I was playing within, maybe 7 days, uh, and I was awful. They put me in center midfield to get touches, and I was always a sweeper, um, and I was the worst I'd ever been. And then within about 3 or 4 games of touching the ball so much, it was maybe the best I had ever been. So I was waiting for the call up, and we were really bad because we had like five sophomores and a freshman on the varsity. And then Jeff Sorensen was kind of up and down with a broken foot and trying to rehab and go. And um, so, and I don't think Mike Gibbs played that year because Mike had a broken leg. And um, so we were missing some quality guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured, hey, at the end of the year, I'm going to get the call up. So Coach Rose finally pulls me into his office and he says, hey, and I'm like, yeah. getting the call up, fellas, I'll be up with you. And he asked me to be the ball boy for the sectional game.
Oh,
And
oh,
I was a kid and didn't know how to articulate how I was feeling. And I was certainly surprised. And maybe I didn't see things, obviously, didn't see things the way he did, because there were guys who I will not mention that I was clearly better than, who were starting on the varsity. And so I went, and a kid from Pittsburgh was obnoxious, and I ended up walking off on how I was treated as a ball boy. I'm like, I'm better than a kid playing, and so I ended up quitting. I didn't play my junior year.
I did
Um,
not know this.
yeah, did not. I was going with Kurt Groutman all the time to Brockport State to play, but it's pickup basketball, and if you're not really doing it the right way and in shape, and I had a very poor junior year in basketball because I wasn't really fit, and I think soccer was a big part of that, and we didn't have the training that you do today.
Hmm.
Um, didn't have open gyms. It was, we grew up going to Henry Street, the community center, and or Brockport State, and so I decided to go back as a senior with the communicating with a lot of my friends. Hey, just come back to hang with us. And it's funny because I wasn't really happy with Coach Rose at that point for his assessment, and I came back. Was going to play in the midfield more, um, and then moved into the back. And I had lost a lot of skill, for sure, and a lot of
Hmm.
confidence. Um, but I had some pretty good players around me that not only as players, but really good leaders, and um, that could make you feel good about yourself. And um, things started to get better. And then we had a little blip in the radar where Coach, I remember, yelled at me pretty good about giving up a couple goals. And meanwhile, I look at my eventual college roommate and buddy, Jeff Sorensen, and he's going to get thrown under the bus here, Mike. He is kneeling over at midfield as I'm taking on a 2-on-1, not once, but twice in the game. Both times resulted in goals. And Coach had this distinctive yell when he would call your name, and it was me on both times. And I'm like, I'm I'm dealing with a 2-on-1 here, and my buddy is up at midfield, and he knows it, and he's pointing back at me, my fault, my fault. And I'm like, I'm taking it on the chin here, but I'm respectful. I am not going to talk back to him. And come to find out, you know, I even saw him about a week ago. I love the man. What I loved about him was he demanded respect and worked us hard and was fair and just wanted you to work hard and you'll get what you deserve, kind of thing. And we did. We got what we deserved and then some. We certainly got lucky, but there was a time when he pulled me aside and talked about putting me on the bench after that situation where then our leaders, Corey Me, went and talked to him and said, no, that's not what we see, coach. And um, we had some issues with our midfield getting back. And then what we did during the course of that season and that magical run is Jeff Sorensen grew from 5'6" in April to like 6'4" in September. And he was like a
Amazing.
baby deer,
Hmm.
and he couldn't run. Um, but he was still pretty crafty with the ball at his feet, and he used to be amazing with the ball at his feet. And it slowly started coming back, coordination coming back, and we eventually shifted him into the central midfield position. We didn't lose after we did that, but every game, coach didn't even know it. We would start like Mark Dupont or Steve Bremner were in the middle, and we just shifted it without him saying, and the rest was history. Jeff won every ball in the middle. If it got past him, Corey or Chris Fay or myself or Brian Ash would win the ball. And it's funny, Mike, because we had, I think, 9 guys maybe went on to play Division 1, 2, or 3 soccer, and maybe our best guy played Division 1 baseball. Um, and we were
Corey B,
not,
right?
yeah, we were not super skilled, but eventually I think we had skill. Like even in the state final, we were in a humongous wind. Um, the wind chill and the wind were so strong that if you tried to blast the ball like he wanted us to previously, it would swirl and not go anywhere against the wind. And so we had to play to feet, which is the way the game is played and should be played. And we demonstrated we had that ability um, our very last game of the year. But it was my least favorite sport and the most rewarding and best vivid memories, um, with great bunch of guys and who are all successful today, and with a great man that led us. It was magical.
Who did you beat in sectionals to win the title that year?
So it was a different format, Mike. It was the old World Cup format. So you were in a pool, and we got completely dominated by Webster and won 1-0. And then we had to play West Irondequoit, who kind of got the better part of us in the beginning of the game, and we beat them 2-1 in overtime. And then we had to play Cardinal Mooney in our pool final, and we beat them 3-1. Beat them up pretty good to advance to the semis. So that's your pool kind of got you out of the quarterfinals. We played Spencerport in the semifinals and annihilated them. And I'm not saying that to get under my wife's skin, who's a Spencerport grad. Uh, but they were good. They were very good. Gave us a heck of a game the first time, but the second time we were firing on all cylinders. And then we played Penfield in the finals, and unfortunately for them, their best player was a Geneseo guy, Jason Thomas. Um, we broke his ankle on a hard tackle early in the game, and they were still probably better than us technically and as soccer players. But you catch that magic in a bottle, and we were pretty tough, um, and we kind of scratched and clawed and beat them 1-0. So it was like a relief, not only to win it, obviously, an elation, but like we held on for dear life because they were pretty good for sure, and that was the beginning of a long run for them.
Do you think that high school soccer should go back to the World Cup format, or do you think they're just a time constraints now?
It's probably a state tournament kind of work backwards type thing where they got dates that they got to get things in, unless they played a shorter schedule. Um, but it's tougher, I think, to play soccer back to back nights like you could in basketball or baseball for sure. But I think that it was grueling. It might have even have been survival of the fittest, and we were
Hmm.
pretty darn fit. And that's a
Hmm.
credit to Coach Rose. I mean, we were disciplined and fit, and we also learned from Ken Hayward, our JV coach, who was also like our under 12 coach and like an All American in high school and played at Syracuse. He taught us the game within the game, um, of how to get over on teams without them paying attention, how to milk the clock and things like that, by playing dumb, but yet you were sly like a fox. Um, so he taught us all of those things, and how to kick a ball. I mean, he was really really skilled. Um, so I think that there's so many little factors that came into play there that We battled through some injuries. Had some guys collide with hitting heads early in the year and getting some stitches and juggling our lineup. So once we got it all figured out, wasn't necessarily the prettiest brand, uh, but we kind of we physically, we had some pretty good size, so we kind of took care of teams that way.
And then I do believe back in that era, most fields were grass. Is that a different style to play when you're on grass versus turf?
Yeah, I think it favors a team. I mean, if you have skill and the turf kind of, you can get exploited pretty quick if you don't have skill on the turf. And I don't think we played one game on turf. I really don't. And I don't think there are very many played on natural grass. And with our beloved Bills, I know I'd almost like to see everything go back to grass with all the
Mm-hmm.
injuries that are starting to accumulate. I I get it. I get the whole less maintenance and you can play under certain conditions, but um, I see the injuries starting to pile up, and um, I don't know if it's affected soccer as much with the injuries, but I imagine it's somewhere down the line. There's been some knees that have struggled.
Well, I think coming out of that whole high school magical, you said it was a magical run with a great man. And I think that's a good way to encapsulate your high school sports. Did you play any sports in college?
What an interesting route I took, Mike. So I went. I was the only sport I was recruited to play was tennis. Um, and I went to Oswego and said, you know what, I think I'm good enough. I just haven't fully developed. I'm gonna play basketball. So I went to play basketball, and we'd go to pick up, and my buddy Pat Higgins from West Irondequoit,
Mm-hmm.
he and I would go, and in order to play pickup with the team, like organized, you had to do conditioning. Let's say condition on Monday to play pickup on Tuesday. So this was beginning in like mid to late September, and we had already played pickup, informally, like on a weekend and stuff. And I remember an old Hilton guy, a buddy of our brother's, Bill Golden, came up, and we played pickup on a Saturday with um, Joe Jones, who is now the head coach, I think, at Yale or Columbia. He was a grad assistant at Oswego at the time. And we played pickup with him, and we just ran the court all day. And he said, "Are you playing for the team?" And I said, "Yeah, I was planning on trying out." And he said, "Planning on trying out? Like, we need you." They were 0 and like 18 in the conference the year before. They were not great. So Pat and I go to conditioning, and I don't really know anything about it. Like, all right, you ran a couple of suicides. We ran like three of them or four of them in a row, and I am not an athlete. And I win them. And I go, if I'm winning sprints, we're in trouble. Little did I know that people were pacing themselves because the assistant coach goes, we've got like 25 more. And I'm like,
Jeez.
not for me. The funny part is I'm pretty tough and similar to that theory or philosophy. But I then go and grab my stuff and I'm ready to go out the double doors of the gym. And I remember looking back at Pat, like, are you coming with me? And he didn't know what to do. He was like a deer in headlights. The coach said to me, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm just grabbing a piece of gum. My mouth gets dry when I run." So he turned around, I scooped up my stuff, and I'm out the door, and I never saw Higgins. And he stuck it out, finished the running, and yet still didn't go play pickup the next day. So I go play intramurals, and my roommate, Jeff Sorensen, was kind of our big man on campus as a freshman on the soccer team. And I hung out with all the soccer guys, and they were great. And I decided I was going to play soccer if I'm lucky enough to. So I started training with them in indoors in like November, December, and of course, when I went to school, I gained 25 pounds. Uh,
Supposed to be the freshman 15, coach.
yeah, I exceeded that. And so, and the coach is like, well, if Jeff Sorensen, if you say that he can play and you can vouch for him, then we'll give him a look. And, I slowly got back into shape. I played the spring season. Um, and that little thing about going to class and being a good student eluded me a little bit. And I was very immature and not focused. I didn't know what I wanted to do, just kind of all about having fun. And so my grades were abysmal. And I went to MCC, said I'm gonna get my grades up. And I was making a little bit of money as a valet at a nice restaurant downtown. And so I was all set to go back in January of my sophomore year, and I got mono, and I was not healthy enough to go back. So I finally went back my junior year and got back to my playing weight and was very fit, um, and kind of had I guess it would be what we'd call a stress fracture in my foot. Uh, Coach kind of got grumpy with me for some off the field transgressions, and I served my punishment and worked my way back. And then our grades came out, and I wasn't cutting the mustard, and they sent me home. So I went to work for, well, I ended up graduating school in 97. So I kind of didn't figure out what I wanted to do for a while, and graduated 5 years after I should have. Best thing for me, blue collar, working hard, not getting a lot of respect. Um, and some good friends kind of steered me in the right direction to stop talking about it and go do it. And big one being Andy Antonucci, kind of like, I don't care what you turn out to be, just don't BS people, right? If you're gonna go back to school, go back to school. If not, go make, go do something with this. And he pushed me in the right direction, and I had been volunteering coaching at that time. I was Rich Lapani's JV assistant. Some of the most memorable, laughing years of my life. The man is hysterical. Um, and so it got me on the right track to get into education and coaching and teaching. And so it was a great learning experience. I don't know if I'd like to do that again. I wish I was mature enough to just go get it done. But it was rewarding at the same token because I had to figure it out, not anybody else. And so because I turned it around, it was nice.
That's amazing. And did you get your degree from Oswego or did you go more local?
No, I went to Brockport and ended up kind of saying part time. I'm going to take a history class and a health class, and what I like more, um, I'll maybe take two classes next semester in that area, and and then I probably did that for a year and a half. It's funny because my mentor at Brockport seemed like he was, or excuse me, at my job. I worked at a company called Breed Tool and Supply, and the guy um, seemed like he was 40 years old, long lumberjack beard, and he was a year older than me. And he was married at like 19, and he would go work in the morning from like 5 to 10, go to Brockport, take classes, and then come back for an hour or two to work, and then eventually completely out where he was student teaching. And he's like, you need to do this, you need to do what I did. and we just had a lot in common. And sweetheart of a guy, um, and I did. I followed his path, and so it was part time, and then I bit the bullet and went back full time. And you know, it makes you appreciate what our parents all did and how hard they worked, because I was all on my own financially at that point and didn't know how much money to borrow on a student loan, and um, some crazy times that way, but scratched and clawed and got through. So everything, undergrad and grad, was at Brockport.
Can you mention the name of your mentor that you worked for that kind of said you should go this route? What was his name?
His name was Paul Murtis. He ended up remarrying, moving down to Corning, and Paul ended up passing away from cancer a few years back. Blew me away because we're talking the early 90s, a guy that ate healthy, was fit, uh, didn't really drink, never smoked, and he just, drew a bad card, I guess. Awesome guy. Kept in touch a little bit when he went that direction. Um, and he's originally from Ohio. And I just couldn't say enough there. I imagine he had to be a terrific teacher. He's a science teacher.
I want to delve back into Andy Antonucci a little bit, and I don't know how much you want to really discuss. Andy got into some trouble with some things. What did you learn about yourself that even people that maybe get into some turmoil also had a big influence on you?
Yeah. So, what one, it's our friendships, and people can make some tough choices, and they grow from them, and he certainly has. He is just, people don't know, they saw him as this mean, nasty wrestler. My wife included. She loves him because he wrestled for her rival. She was at Spencerport and was a wrestling family that she came from. And when you meet that guy, you realize he he doesn't really pick on people. He's funny because he's kind of self-deprecating, um, but he's a very bright guy, um, and a loyal friend who offered the right push. It just, honesty. It was, listen, I don't care what you do. You're my friend, um, but work. Go do what you want to do, and don't sit there and kind of vacillate between not making a decision that'll affect your future. And was so supportive, um, and we're still supportive. He came to Preston's game this summer, um, down in Geneva with his son. I mean, I have a group of friends that I'm very fortunate that it's this big circle. I think we had 10 or 11 guys in our wedding party, and I keep in touch with almost all of them all the time. I have some mentors that way, um, and two of my biggest being, still, Jeff Sorensen is unbelievable in terms of, he's very successful in his occupation, but he's also brilliant and just a friend that can put things in perspective for you, build your confidence. Um, he's unbelievably generous, and his wife, they're just really solid people who care about others and their success. And then Corey and me, who I because my kids have gone this baseball route, Corey and I have gone fishing for, we had a streak before COVID of 25 straight years of going fishing at least once, and we picked it back up, but we talk once a week or every other week still. Um, and I've had some really good people push me. So I've been blessed with some great friends.
And I like it how you give credit back to them and you recognize what they've done for you. Moving on a little bit now, do you recall your first teaching job, first position, where and what was
Yeah.
that like?
So I started subbing in Greece, started subbing everywhere. And then in Greece, a college teammate of mine's sister in law was a health teacher and was going out on maternity leave. And I called him, he called her and said, "Do you need someone?" So that was at Greece Athena, and she was between the middle school and the high school. And I met another great set of mentors. Um, I shared an office with Jimmy Johnson, Don Haygreen, Frank Vito, um, Jerry Nacella, just Mike Balducci came in, Mike Butler came in, Jeff Amoroso came in, Jason Bunting, Rob Cerrone. It was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the best place to learn more about coaching and teaching um, and then be entertained because what wonderful people. Um, so I was there almost till the end of the year, and she came back from maternity leave, and she ended up maybe going part time the following year. So I kind of did her job part time, and then I was out the that following September. And I remember this. It's funny how the world works, Mike, and you know this. A lot of it, life is about how you treat people, and this gentleman, our director of human resources at Greece, his name was Paul Schiffman. He called me early September. Bonnie and I were engaged, and I was subbing. Nothing had panned out where I landed anything, and at a time when teaching jobs were hard to come by. And he said, "Hey, listen, I've got like a .4 for you." And I'm like, "I appreciate it, Paul, but my wife and I are getting married, and I can actually make more money subbing. I know it's not the route I want to go, but I think this is what I need to do." He says, "Listen, is Kathy Prince your mom?" And I said, "Yes." And I knew my mom had worked for him a couple years before then. "How's she doing?" "Great." I filled him in. He says, "Listen, say no more. Your mom is wonderful. You'll be Take this .4. You'll be full time by the end of the week. I'll find you something." And that just told me that people take care of people who are good people, and that my mom more or less got me that job. And sure enough, he got me something, and they pieced it together where I taught in an after school program. So I would teach like 2 classes in the morning. I think I was teaching one health, one home and careers. And then the afternoon, I taught from 3 to 5:30 all the kids in Greece that had been kicked out of school or just stopped going, and they wanted an alternative for them. So that's the direction I headed in. And I did that for 2 years. Then I got back to Athena, um, and I was there for about 5, teaching with Marianne Blair, who was terrific. And then I got involuntarily transferred to Odyssey, and I did not want to go. But I was dual certified in PE and health, and they needed me to teach one PE class, I guess. So reluctantly, I went there, um, and you ate lunch with the kids, hated it, and then I ended up working with some great people there. Matt Vergamini, John Lockhart, Steph Holtz, Carolyn Belak, Carolyn Dean now. Just awesome people. And then our staffing got cut, and I was out of a job after 13 years and panicked. And we had 2 PE teachers retire, Jim Lemline and somebody else. And through transferring and stuff, there was the opening that I, kind of pushed my way in and said, I deserve to have this job. I've taught PE multiple times and I should get it. And I begged my way in, and the principal at that time, Kathy Zodarecki, was great. And I said, I will do whatever you need me to do. I will learn what I need to learn. And got another mentor, Rich Wood, who had been teaching elementary, taught Preston at Patty Hill, because we were living in Greece. And he was phenomenal. Gave me his whole curriculum. And there's nothing like on the job training. Like, we can go to
Mm-hmm.
school, but until you're in the seat and doing it and learning, uh, that's the best training. And I have been there, another 15 years now, maybe. I think it's been crazy that I've now been in one spot 15 years doing elementary PE grades K through 2. Never thought I'd be doing it, but here I am.
A lot to unpack there. One thing I want to talk about is how did you know, like, what was it like, all the movement around with PEs? Like, how did you know you wanted to be a PE teacher? Was it the closeness where you get to get into coaching? Or what was your point of view?
Yeah, so, I first going into education, I knew that because I'd been volunteer coaching and I felt like I was making a little bit of a difference. And in my role as an assistant, much different. I had some more one-on-one conversations where, I'd coached many times as coaching the whole team. And then when they got time, they would work through to individuals. And I just felt like this is, how do I do this more? And that's what led me into the education field, and then transitioning um, to PE, and how that was. I just sharing that office and seeing different people who were PE teachers, and they were coaching so many different sports. Basically, that office had almost every sport covered.
Absolutely,
Um,
yeah.
and it was, uh, what you learned is there was more than one way to do it. You had to borrow things that you wanted from different people and be yourself at the same token. Um, and that just kind of, from having somebody to talk to after him, which I haven't had in 15 years of being at the elementary school. I've been on my own for like 13 of
Mm-hmm.
those years.
Mm-hmm.
So I missed that collaboration with those colleagues after games, or a big game coming up, or a tough kid that this player's dealing with that. Um, Fortunately, everybody's a text or phone call away, but it is nice having somebody that next day. And you go through it too, being in
Mm-hmm.
elementary, and not until you get to practice sometimes do you get to bounce something off somebody as we're
Right.
working during the day. So I miss those years, and many of those guys have retired. Um, and some of the most memorable years, who are still, you run into them and they're still great to bounce things off of. And um, I relish the relationships that were built through this job.
And I don't mean to slight anybody, but some guys that you mentioned, Don Hager, uh, his grandson plays Hilton football, Luke Lockhart, John Lockhart, Jim Johnson, Jeff Amoroso, Jason Bunning. I mean, like, those are loaded not only with coaches, but highly successful coaches. If you could name maybe one, two, three things that maybe even cite the coach that you learned from those guys on how to be a successful coach.
I've been fortunate, and I'd be remiss if I didn't even go back further to my guys that I learned from. Like you, I use this phrase, you only know what you know. So I thought, Mike, many years ago, I'd be ready. I applied to be the Mod A or freshman coach at Hilton, and I didn't get it. And I had only learned what I learned from Coach Me and Coach Demo at that point. And it was meant to be, because then and Coach Me taught you how to organize a practice, and his work ethic second to none, um, and no time wasted. And um, so I go over and I thought, yeah, I'm ready. I wasn't ready. And then I go over to Athena and I worked with Jimmy Johnson, similar with that work ethic, um, and the no time wasted, but delved even deeper into the basketball piece. And I think he learned a lot from like Doug Childs,
Mm-hmm.
um, who was one of the guys that really organized his his plays and how he was scouting teams and things like that. I really learned, that organization from Jimmy. Jeff Amoroso is terrific at one-on-one with kids and motivating them, getting them to play even harder than and be confident. Jeff was amazing at that. Um, and without, basketball being necessarily his sport, but he figured it out and learned from Jimmy. Um, and Don Haygreen I only had a year with Don, maybe 2 years with Jerry. Um, but working right up until their final days, of it's still important and you're still a role model. Jerry bringing humor into things. He is one of the most amusing people on earth. And now his grandson's in my program, so it's pretty great. Um, and his other grandson will be in the program. Hopefully, I'm still around a little bit. Yeah, he's in sixth grade, so I'll be there a little bit. But um, so, and then I get over to Olympia and coach JV for 2 years with a dear, dear friend, Steve DeRoy, um, who was relentless with scouting and preparation. And you couldn't blink without him knowing, is that a key to changing a play or something? And he was a single guy and passionate, loved it. Um, Deserved better. He passed from a heart attack many years ago now, and um, he and I had grown very close from working as his JV coach for a couple of years. Still, after I transitioned out of there, we're buddies, and the same crew, many of them, we play cards together about once a month now, with Jimmy and Mike Butler and my JV coach Jeff Esposito and Danny Johnson, and the laughs and still talking coaching and sports is priceless.
Now, the next one is going to be Bonnie, but you mentioned something about you got let go after 13 years or whatever. Um, Economy, it's always topsy turvy. What type of advice could you give to people if, you know, 13, 15 years in, all of a sudden their job gets cut?
I guess don't hit the panic button. And I learned, that your family and the boys were toddlers. Um, that of course my wife was panicking and a little bit, but I think we knew that, and this is, where I go back to having some successful friends, um, and the type of people they are. I remember calling Jeff Sorensen and saying, look um, what am I going to do? We have a house, we have babies, there's nothing open. Now, if you step back, which is what he's able to do all the time, he's like, okay, it's going to work. You're going to be fine. And let's get a plan together. And all right, we'll start applying to other places. And literally, I took a personal day that next day and updated resumes and started sending stuff out. And as it turns out, then they called and told me um, that I'll be able to interview for a PE position. So our panic literally was only about like 48 hours.
Okay.
Um, Maybe a week by the time it was offered and hey, you're going to go here. But in that time, your family and friends, Jeff said, hey, listen, you're my guy. I will help you. Uh, and financially, if we start to get in trouble, I'll be there for you. But you're gonna get through this. And my wife is more of a panicker. I wouldn't say in that case she was the huge rock, but she is in many, many other ways that rock. Um, from taking care of the kids while I'm out coaching, and I think we're pretty fortunate, as you are, with really good children that they have their flaws that not everybody sees. Um, but my wife's influence is there, and like she's really, really passionate. I think that's where you know my my kids fire. Preston's fire when he plays maybe comes from mom, who's unapologetically passionate and loyal. Um, she juggled, everything from meals and doctor's appointments. So I think you got to have those mentors, and then you got to have the family rocks to pursue what it is I've been lucky enough to pursue.
Where did you meet Bonnie?
Scott Tudman introduced us playing volleyball out at Red Creek, and my nephew tried to exceed his engagement duration or pre-engagement duration. I think he did because Bonnie and I didn't get engaged for like 5 years. We dated, which is extraordinarily long these days. But I had no job, I was
Right.
like, what am I going to do? But I knew if she was willing to stick with me through, making minimum wage for years, that I probably shouldn't let it go.
Well, you done good, Troy. You married up, and I'm glad she's
Thank
still
you.
around taking pictures at games and all that. Uh, let's go now into more of varsity basketball. You're now been varsity coaching for I don't know how many years, but give us our listeners or viewers what's it like being the leader of an entire program.
So this is I think it's coming up in year 20. And ironically, you ask a question that Jeff Esposito and I talked about just last Thursday. And the kids, and we feel like we build pretty good relationships with our kids and get to know them really well. And we both looked at each other, and we were talking about a kid maybe not giving him a lot of feedback. And I said, it allowed me to look in the mirror a little bit. And I said, we forget that he's looking at you like you're the JV coach. And he wants to kind of impress you and toe that line. And he's not really comfortable yet being totally himself. And he was like a middle schooler, ninth grader maybe. And I said, and I have been able to see that at different times. You forget what it's like being the varsity coach. Like kids will look at you like you're the varsity coach. And other kids are kind of clueless and don't pay any attention of what they just did in front of their varsity coach. And others are very mindful, and yet we look at it like we're just, and we are regular people, but you forget sometimes it's a lot of responsibility. People have no idea the amount of work because it is an all year round sport in a very, I mean, I coach an urban sport. Basketball has become a very urban sport in a very suburban community. And we have to work to get the type of player skilled enough for us to compete against teams that many times are more athletic than we are. And so we have to be organized. And I love it. I have grown in so many different ways, learned about my biggest thing is I wanted to do this where I got guys that come back and now want to take it over or coach. Reality is that means they're going into education, and as we know, that field is kind of drying up. So it's been hard to get former players that have a job that allows them to come back and do that. I think they all like to, but it, their lives and their occupation don't allow it. So it's nice when things are good and people are cordial, but you find out that some people um, have struggled with separating their child, what's best for their child versus what's best for the team. Um, some people have become unprofessional with how they communicate with you, which is pretty sad. Um, but overall, I mean, I wouldn't change a whole lot. Certainly, my behavior on some things I would, um, and my reaction to some things, but how I treated my players and the honesty and the relationship, even where I have parents who maybe aren't fans of mine. I think if you ask their child sees it differently, and that's what I need. I just need validation from my players that tried to make them a better player and a better person and held them accountable. And sometimes, myself included, as parents, we get the quote unquote dad goggles on, and I want to make sure that um, I'm transparent. People see that I'm tough and demanding, but there's love, and I'll do whatever I can for the kid. Um, if you make it through and play in our program, that you're, kind of a cadets basketball player for life. Um, so that's kind of um, that piece that I still love. I still love the game and developing kids and trying to beat the big dogs, and um, it drives me still. Last year kind of re-energized me. Most people probably don't know, Mike, that um, you know when I coached my older son, fortunate that we had a good year. He carried us, but I felt an enormous amount of pressure with him, and that if he didn't play well, it was a reflection on me. And some people felt like we ran a lot of stuff for him, which is amusing because they don't know basketball then. We didn't run anything for him. He got his on hustle and hard work. And occasionally we'd run something occasionally, but no more than most of the stuff we ran was to get a 3-point shot off, not a layup for him. Um, so when he left and graduated last season was such a relief of pressure that it brought a lot of joy back to it. And So it's, so many things that you don't know until you're going through the journey. But it's been incredibly rewarding. Uh, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I want to leave it in really good standing, uh, and all the way down to our travel program, and something that I feel has been an asset to our basketball program. I feel has been an asset to our community, and that's the mark I want to leave.
You mentioned earlier on in this answer about I don't think people have an idea what encompasses a year-round program head. Uh, Talk a little bit more about off-season, preseason, open gyms, weights. I mean, these things are activities that your guys and you need to do just to stay competitive.
Yeah, so let's start at the end of the season. I kind of do some exit interviews with every player, and I try to get them set up if they desire to play travel in the off season. Because for the most part, we're our own travel organization. So if they choose to do something above and beyond, which I encourage, we try to help them with those connections. And then they do that stuff March, April on their own. And then in the past year or two, we're able to have them go lift with our strength and conditioning coach, but that's only been the last year. Then about May, we start opening the gym twice a week. Uh, Leads into, and it's fluctuated. I've had strength trainers come in, try to have people pay out of their pocket, or we've paid for it out of the program. Speed and agility, and given umpteen different resources. And lifting is not necessarily fun, but I think once kids get into it, it builds their self-esteem, it builds their performance, gives them confidence. It's just getting them over that hump of, I'm not very strong yet and I'm embarrassed and I need to be dedicated. And it's a lifelong thing if they do it. But we've struggled and struggled. In years when we've had football players, we've been a very physical team. And lately, I think right now, it just has gone like this with some years. Right now, we're heavy baseball guys, but they're lifting. We've had occasional sprinkling of soccer guys. Um, and, getting the multi sport kid helps us if they're lifting for sure. But that whole piece from getting those people in, we transition into June where I start organizing. Well, I started organizing in April of sending our guys down to Mercyhurst College for a team camp. I've been taking like two seventh and eighth grade teams, one freshman team, one JV team, and sometimes two varsity teams down there for a weekend where they play 3 games on a Saturday, 3 games on a Sunday, live in the dorm. We supervise them. It is great to get, that's the building block of an introduction to our program for seventh graders. And it's their first time away from moms and dads sometimes, and they love it. We've done things like Splash Lagoon to, 1 year we went to a Class A baseball game that was, for me, it was awesome. Um, but a ton of organizing and time spent getting that organized, making sure I have coaches if they don't have a conflict. And then the last few years, we've hosted summer leagues at Mod B, Mod A summer leagues. 1 year we even hosted a JV. We play in a JV and a varsity depending on whether it's at Fisher, Gates, or both. Um, Getting referees for that, refereeing it myself, emailing, calling coaches to see if their teams are interested, securing the gym. Um, and then, even though email is much more convenient, I'm still fielding. I have close to 80 kids in the program. So I'm fielding those emails of, are you in? Are you out for summer league? Oh, coach, I have a conflict. Well, send that to the coach that's coaching you for the summer. And, oh, we don't know who that is. And it is a ton of work um, with that organizational piece. Uh, to then, we usually run 2 different weeks of camp because some kids can't make it in the first week. And then we also want to see the development improvement. We do another one in August. Summer league is typically 2 days a week. Um, and then I give them the month of August to hopefully train on their own. And then beginning that first week of school, my varsity guys are going 3 days a week. We scrimmage somebody once a week. And then we do 2 open gyms a week. And then they're also going to, the HD performance, strength and conditioning Monday, Wednesday, Friday. typically Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So, then we'll go straight through till March, end of February.
I mean, I knew that was a ton of work. How do you see the basketball team doing this year? If you know how hard they've been working and what they got ahead.
So I have cautious optimism. It's I think we'll be better. I think for a lot of reasons, just maturity, um, and some other teams have lost a lot, and yet we maintained a lot. How much our guys have improved? The fall is usually a big development time for us because we have so many baseball guys. We don't get a lot of that commitment in the spring and summer.
Mm-hmm.
So the fall is when we can put some things together and see some of that development. Um, I say cautious optimism because at the end of the day, like we're skilled, yet we've had some trouble making decisions with the basketball that I'm hoping will improve because of maturity and being in that situation before, the experience. Uh, Yet to go back to, hey, things were difficult a year ago, 2 years ago now, I could go give the ball to Preston and he could go get something for us. I don't necessarily have that physical guy that can do it. I have guys that have different skill sets that can knock down a shot. They can't necessarily create it on their own. So if we're in those close games, which we were in, I think we got 2 games last year where they were not closely contested out of 21. So in those crunch times where we needed a bucket, we didn't have a whole lot to go to, and that resulted in they score, we don't, they score, we don't, and a 2-point game turns into an 8-point loss in the last 2 minutes. Not sure we've had that guy develop for us yet in this off season, but we do have some good pieces by committee. Um, and we're not terribly big, not just that we have small guards, but our bigs are 6'2" and 6'1", maybe 6'3" and 6'2", which is relatively small to be a big.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not by any means downplaying. I'd rather be the guy that's cautiously optimistic than the guy that's boastful and says, "Oh, we're going to win the league and do this." Do I believe things can happen for us? I do. I do. I don't want anybody to mistake that. We have a chance, but being small, we have to do the little things and really team block out and team go get it and fight. And we just have proven to be inconsistent with that in the past. So we need a commitment to those things, and we'll see. I'm excited about it for sure.
Cautiously optimistic. I like the sound of that. What other sports do you coach during the school year, and what levels?
So I've coached soccer many, many years ago. I started at Greece Arcadia Modified and Greece Athena Modified. And a couple years I was at Odyssey. I ended up coaching JV because they had nothing. And I told them the fall is awful for me. It's a huge time for basketball. He was my buddy. He was desperate, so I helped him. It was only a 1-year commitment, turned into 2. But he won the sectionals, which was kind of pretty cool to get involved with that at that time. And then I coached boys tennis at Greece Athena. I think I did it for 18 years. Um, and we scratched and clawed, and I remember taking my snowblower out there to be the toughest team on the west side, getting the snow off the courts, but we were up against it. Um, and then I coached girls tennis here for about the last 10 years, and have transitioned into volleyball for the first time. And I would say last week, even though I think we only had one match last week, and I think we we lost it at homecoming. But I will say I think there's been a transition into realizing doing the little things, because I have some very sweet girls and some talent, um, but they have to learn what a commitment to a team is and battle through some minor little don't feel perfect things, and I'm going to stay home today. And they realized, I said, okay, hope you feel better. But then they realize they don't play the same amount the next game,
Mhm.
and there's accountability. And some of them, it's the first time they've ever had to deal with that. Um, so now I think that maybe we've turned that corner, and they, I think, are getting better because of it and
Good.
enjoying it.
Well, we touched on Bonnie a little bit earlier. And now I'd like to move into your children, Preston and Hayden. First your oldest, Preston.
Yeah. So he's actually home. Actually, at the moment he's not. He's out to dinner or lunch with grandparents. Um, Press is a very driven, detail-oriented young man who knows what he wants and goes and gets it. And I think that's a quality he got from his mom. I didn't know what I wanted, and I was always afraid to hurt somebody's feelings and go, why not me go get it? Why not mine? And almost maybe even a too cool for school thing where I didn't want to embarrass myself. My son, Preston, when he wants something, he works to go get it, and luck or something else is going to be the only thing that stands in his way. Uh, we're extremely proud of him. He's a great student. Um, we wish he was a little bit more like other kids where he picked his crap up when he came home, um, or thought about something other than his next start in baseball.
Mhm.
Um, but we have no complaints. I mean, we're very fortunate because he's also kind. He is, when I had him in basketball, um, and you played with Corey, me a lot, there was a very fierce competitor who wasn't emotional. Like you couldn't get under his skin, which is what I tried to train. And instead, I got a ferocious competitor that let you know when you got in his way and you saw the fire, um, which I'm still okay with. I'd rather have him be a competitor first and foremost and sportsmanlike. He toed the line of that piece a little bit. Um, but sometimes it's hard to turn that piece off. Uh, and he's driven if his athletic endeavors don't work out. He is pursuing a career in accounting, and he's at Niagara University and playing on the baseball team, and loved coaching them. Um, and more than that, loved being his dad because um, he does a lot of things to make you proud. Peyton is trying to follow in those footsteps, but a completely different guy. He's more socially aware and outgoing. Um, for the most part, has a lot more common sense, uh, and he's bright in the things he wants to do. Um, and he's a good boy. We just want Pay to maybe develop a consistent work ethic. Because if you get Pay to go in the gym and work on something or in school, he works. But sometimes he needs a nudge to get there. And all we want him to understand is you're going to get what you deserve. And it's got to align, like your goals have to align with your work. And we maybe need to keep maturing that way. But he's balancing now a job and working over at Jose Joe's and a much greater social life. He has a lot more friends than Preston. Uh, Preston has friends, but not people that he truly goes and connects with all the time because sometimes they get in the way of he just doesn't have time because of what he wants to do. I mean, he wants to be a professional baseball player. Um, Peyton, I think, would want to if it were handed to him. But he's got, some things some natural pitching ability himself. Um, and I think Peyton will land on his feet someday because he's going to talk his way into a career that he enjoys. And I think he's a rule follower too, where he's had some friends that he has transitioned away from that maybe haven't just aren't as nice as what the way he wants to be treated. Um, and so he's kind of developed some friendships with some older guys, and we're fortunate that those are some high character kids, and that he also reestablishes those friendships with some other guys that he used to be friends with, and um, because they play so many things together. But he's a good boy. I think he's going to end up just fine. Uh,
Isn't
I
he
think
in
he's got to figure out what it's going to be.
isn't he in charge or on the Hilton Barstool platform?
Yeah, so he did that with James Capilupo last year, and James kind of handed it off to him and another kid, and um, so that's the kind of social piece that Pay's pretty adept at and organizing some things, and he's very passionate. Uh, I remember, I think one of the first guys on the court after some big wins that we've had when he was younger, that like the ball goes in the basket, and I don't know if the horn has gone off or the referee has made the final call. We've been fortunate to be on the right end of that, and Payton was the first guy on the court, like jumping on Taj a couple times. So um, definitely loves his teams and his teammates and being a part of those things. So he's a really good teammate too.
That's awesome. Um, what are some of your outside interests or hobbies?
I love music, um, and I wish I had more time to. Like our buddy Kurt Groutman's got me into some country stuff. Um, Big Dave Matthews Band fan that Jeff Sorensen and I kind of. It's funny. I mean, he's my boy from way back when, and Dave Matthews was big in like 1995, 1996.
True.
We didn't listen to him, and it was like 2006 that we're at his house. It's the summer, and all of a sudden a Dave Matthews Band song comes on the radio, and I'm like, I really like these guys, and he's like, yeah, I really do too. And then Greg Roloff, I mentioned that to him, and all of a sudden Greg sent me album after album. Um, and then we went to a concert together with our wives, and it was phenomenal. And I try to catch them once a year when they come to town. I like to fish, so I stick my toe in a little bit of everything, Mike, but I can't master anything. Golf, I like it, but I went through streaks of I didn't golf for like 5 years.
Hmm.
Um, but I do enjoy the time with my friends. But it frustrates me when I can't put the time in. The guys that like too are half the athlete I think I was, who are twice, three times the golfer I am.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I can't figure this swing out, and it bothers me. Um, and I and I enjoy going to watch different kids play things still. And I think I'll probably continue to do that when I'm done. And um, and I love my Buffalo Bills. Um, and I like Syracuse basketball, even though that's not the style of basketball we play.
That's for
I
sure.
do love the dome, and they're as close to local as we can get. Um, and I like going to watch live sporting events.
Very good. Something that you and I actually participated in together was some amateur sports broadcasts with villageradio.net. Did some football, did a couple seasons together, and then you also got involved in soccer. Explain a little bit about that experience.
God, I miss it.
Mm-hmm.
It was awesome because I'm going to plug you here, very professional at it and very good at
Thank you.
the analyzing and doing the play-by-play stuff, and then throwing a question that leads into something where I can ramble. Um, but I enjoyed talking about our local teams, um, and then trying to give people maybe a different perspective of what a player or coach might have been thinking about, or the connection we might have with something. And boy, I miss those times. And with the live streaming things that you can
Right.
do, and I get that maybe that piece isn't there as much. Um, but boy, did I enjoy some of those games with you for sure.
They're a lot of fun. And just to plug you, I think you and Dan Johnson were doing a boys soccer final, and that had the most listens out of any villageradio.net.
Ah,
Uh,
that's nice to
I,
hear.
now I want to dive in a little bit more of your coaching, and then now when you're coaching and you identify an elite athlete, you've had some in your program, Tajay Hill, your own son. You've watched other athletes in other programs. Um, what some advice that you could give to families of those kids that are identified as potentially high level Division 3, 2, or 1 athletes?
It's a great, great question because we're talking about two of the best that I've coached. And, I have seen before that, oh, we can go back to 1979-ish of my knowledge base um, of Hilton basketball. And I still say we're still talking about no doubt two of our top five, I would say, that ever played. And I'm going to throw Carlton Moore
Oh,
right
yeah.
there at the top, and Ryan and Corey Me two at the top. Um, and I would say that Scott Gibbs was certainly a great player, and my brother played in college, but we haven't had an enormous amount of guys go on to play college. And I guess my so if that's what we're talking about, these guys, and I'll talk about the two that I coached, Tajay and Preston. Ironically, both go to Niagara. Preston could have played Division II basketball. Um, he likes to tell us that he gives it to the Niagara basketball team in pickup games today, uh, and that he swears he could walk on and at least physically compete. I don't know about that, but um, and we're talking about two of the better athlete pieces, two guys that can run and jump, and yet their journey has not been Power Five or Taj even resulting in significant playing time. He's currently, I believe, at an NAIA school down in Texas, and battled injuries, and that may be one of the bigger causes. But it just goes to show you the first thing is I don't want to say temper your expectations, but really do some homework about what is realistic. And um, the second thing I would say is do yourself a favor and really commit to a variety of things. One, the athletic training piece. I think it's a separator. Um, and getting stronger and more athletic. And, we got a guy, Grayson Trubia, who I think if Grayson had gotten that piece, and I haven't seen him play in 2 years now, but I think if Grayson had had that commitment when he was younger, and I think he's maturing and that commitment is maybe greater now, but if he had made that commitment, he might be able to talk about quite a few offers that he might have had. And I think he probably will end up there. Um, I think the next piece is make yourself competitive. With everything you want to do is you work on your desire to want to win. And you can do that in practice. And we do that as coaches. We make everything competitive. And if you don't like it, play harder. Compete more. What are you willing to sacrifice? And the the next thing I would say, if you're looking to kind of be a guy that wants to play in college, no matter basketball or whatever, is ask a lot of questions rather than tell people what you know. And I think a lot of people like to think they know. And I have got so many baseball mentors for my children who are going through it. Like I talked to our high school coach, Kevin Wheelahan. I talked to Tony Fuller, who Preston and Payton have been a part of. Jim Capilupo, who they Preston has played for. Talk to Corey Me. I talk to when I get a chance informally to talk to Preston's college coach. Like the more people you can ask questions from and not sound like an authority, you're going to get more information that you can make a decision about a path that you may want to pursue or a training technique or just how to be better. And I think unfortunately some people think their limited experience makes them an authority. I am not an authority on basketball. Like there's AAU, there is like hoop strength training to different types of AAU programs to prep school and I think everything has its own course. And you got to do what's right for you, but I think what you should do is communicate with people and ultimately you have to make a decision what's best for you. And I hope it works out for everybody. Um, but I think you should communicate with people to find out can they still help you and um, rather than because I think what's happening today, Mike, is people are going off talking to individuals, whether it's travel baseball, basketball. I hear we're doing it in football, where kids are all of a sudden they're out of Rochester. And I wonder what would happen if we kept all the kids in Rochester in various sports, of how much more competitive it would be. Because we have plenty of people that know how to do things. And we have, by the way, we're sending all these people out to prep school in basketball, and we've got a whole bunch in the NBA right now, like that came here, began here. Like, what would happen? So my advice would be, and also be honest with people. I think some people play a game, and so I think if you're talking about developing a plan and you want to be a better athlete, include all those things. And the one being, and I'll add in nutrition. My son is a fanatic. Last night when he came home, and he's been gone 5 to 6 weeks. He says yes, Dad, I'm going to have a cookie for the first time. I'm like, wow, okay. So really taking care of your diet, which is hard. Like you, listen, this guy doesn't take care of his diet.
Hmm.
Uh, but I think that's what has allowed my son, who is coming from my genes, so he's up against it athletically to begin with. Um, but he's maximized what he can do because he has, worked at it. And he had a guy, Clay Pitnaro, that trained him um, before his senior year, uh, and really helped maximize his ability. So I think you plug all those things in, I think you're going to get what you need.
That's very good advice to families and athletes alike. Couple more questions. What can sports do for a school or a community at large, in your opinion?
Mike, I think we're missing the boat here in Rochester when I've traveled across the eastern coast for my kids' baseball stuff, and the investment those communities make, and down south. Um, our community is pretty good with as homecoming. I think it was a record crowd. I don't know how you gauge it when we don't have, we weren't selling tickets, but just based on the eye test, is tremendously well attended. And that builds your community. You're providing a venue for people to have good old fashioned clean fun. And you support each other. And I know that we have a lot of people attending that it's just a social piece. That's okay. Um, and sports can do so much when you have, and I think it starts with facilities. And ours have upgraded tremendously. And I'm disappointed in where we failed to, um, our community has failed to pass a the bond that we had to get, some more upgrades going. I just look at where I've been, and it's standard in different Ohio, Georgia, Virginia, the different places we've gone. And it's that old adage, if you build it, they will come. I think that we can really galvanize communities when you have sports programs and music and the arts, that it's something to be prideful about, and you're going to get kids that want to be a part of that rather than walking around the village. Oh no, I got to start practicing. And ours is one of the better ones facility wise. I just think even our state is missing the boat on what it can really do. And I've seen it in other communities, and it's just a bridge. And I was elated to see it, although I was working the concession stand. Um, but that's, another way of sports. Here I am working in the concession stand, building more relationships with people that may not even know me in other sports. And I think that just helps build your community.
Absolutely. Thank you for your honesty on that. Let's say just a couple more. How has Hilton Sports changed throughout the years? You graduated in '88. We're now 2023.
I think the biggest thing is kids, not all of them, but many of them will go to the more opportunities that we give them for workouts. Um, Yet, I don't think as many of them do things on their own. And I think that's many times where you learn, one, if I'm doing it, you're going to reap the reward and feel the satisfaction because you've put the work in when nobody else is watching. And I think that also is when you develop creativity in whatever sport it is. So I think it's changed because we now have trainers for everything. And the weight training piece, I think, is you have to. I don't want to see kids go off on their own, do something where they could get hurt. But like in basketball, there are communities, many communities, where the coach doesn't do anything. And all of a sudden, the first day of practice comes, and it's the old adage of just let them play. Well, you can't just let them play. Why do you think everybody, all the way up to the NBA, has coaches? You know, there's you know, an openness to letting kids be creative, but they need some structure, and we need to then take their individual skills that they may have developed and then put that together with a how do we use that within a team concept. So I think that training piece has changed. I think our facilities have upgraded quite a bit in technology and being able to utilize film, even though we still have some film from VHS and things like that. The quality that'll stay around forever is much better, and kids have instant highlights, which is kind of nice. And I think social media, pros and cons to it is we've got a lot of kids that just want to see their face out there and do things and jump in front of a camera without necessarily, one, deserving of it, or two, I don't think they're kind to each other when, I've heard kids say, well, we just abused that team, or that was dumb the way they did that. I'm like, oh boy, that's not the platform to do that with. So I think there's a lot of those pieces.
3 words to describe Hilton. What makes you proud to be from a small town?
I think loyalty. I think small. Even though we have a large enrollment, I think it's still small because we don't have a lot of distractions from commercializing things. Uh, and I think lifelong, because I have been a person that part of me says I wish I had left to go see the world, but I've also seen plenty of the world. Like I've had opportunities. Here's what I know: this is as close to a perfect community as I could ask for. Um, Certainly, I'd like some things like as I talked about with even more dedication to facilities and things like that. But and I've been afforded the luxury of traveling still for my kids' things and as a young adult. But in terms of residing, this is where I want to be. So lifelong is kind of come full circle for me.
Well, it's pretty much the end of the discussion questions that I had. And Troy, is there anything else that you'd like to add to our viewers?
No, Mike, I know I rambled plenty,
Not
and I
rambling.
appreciate the opportunity to share who I am a little bit with people, um, and appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. We've had a lot of different connections that way, and um, hopefully we have a few more in front of us.
Let's hope. Well, this has been Mike Hayes with Touching Base with Troy Prince. We will see you next time on the Big H Podcast. Good day, everybody.